Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business Podcast. I am your host, Bobby B, and I have a very special guest today. All of my guests are special, of course, but here today we have a guy who's done a lot for the documentary wedding photography world. He is from across the pond. And across the pond, meaning like I'm on this side of the Atlantic, he's on the other side. I met him recently. I'm dropping you lots of hints if you're someone who likes to like anticipate what's coming up. He is the co-founder of DocDay, which I've done a couple of podcasts about DocDay previously. If you're interested in what that is, it's a one-day conference in Dublin every February. It is intimate and fun and inspiring and encouraging, and people from Ireland are just fucking great. So if that interests you, listen to those past podcasts. But today I've gone right to the source. I am talking with Kevin Kheffache. He started that whole thing. He has a schwack of awards from Fearless and from This Is Reportage. But if you have a look at his work, and his partner is his wife Annie, they started DocDay, this wonderful documentary world, or in Ireland, and I am stoked to talk to him. He's going to be coming right on up. Thank you again for being here, and let us welcome Kevin Kheffache.
Hello, hello.
Hello, sir.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good. Really good.
Oh,
We
thank
got
you for
here.
being here.
No, thank you for having me. How's your back?
Oh, it was my neck.
Your neck. Sorry. Even worse.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago, I was in a car accident and I got like a seatbelt injury that kind of comes across your collarbone. And I didn't really think much of it. But now that I have my hand like across my midline so much, like holding the camera, it's become this like bundle of nerves underneath my collarbone.
No.
Yeah, and it like sometimes it shoots up into my neck and like into my jaw and like down to my thumb.
I presume you've tried changing straps and all that?
I've tried all of that, but it's that my hand is here, so that this bundle of like it's like your pec muscles are tight for so long, right? Because they're holding the camera like just across my nose. And then that like aggravates the nerve that comes down from, I don't know, like C1 or C2 or whatever. So, AKA woman in her 40s
I feel you. I
who's
feel
been
you.
through some stuff.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah,
What
I
about
just bought
you?
a
Do
new
you have any
strap.
like chronic injuries?
Not chronic, but like just I'm 47. I'm
Yeah.
feeling my age, especially now. The wedding season kind of gets quiet, and
Yeah.
then it picked back up. I just bought a new strap. I have a strap that goes. I try and do one camera as much as I can, and it just
Yeah.
goes around there. And
Yeah.
I just bought a new one to go that way to try and relieve. I feel like it's pulling at my back. I went to
Yeah.
bed on Saturday night last week, feeling like I've been beat up, and I didn't know if it was because of the wedding or I've tried to go back swimming. It was maybe that a little bit, or I
Yeah.
trained jiu-jitsu. Maybe it was
It could
and
be
I was
all of
lying in
those.
bed. Say again?
Could be all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Or it could just be that I'm 47 and I just need to stop moaning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I feel like at 45, things like accelerated.
I regret so much in my 30s feeling old then. I was like, what was I thinking? I was so young.
Yeah, I know. I know friends who are in your 30s. You know what? You're gonna get older. Like, you're not old.
My brother's 15 years younger than me, and he's starting to make
Yeah.
noises about being old. And I'm like, Sean, you better shut your mouth. Yeah,
That's interesting. I have a sister who's 12 years younger.
right.
But I've always felt like she was sort of older than me because she's this like, she's just always been very mature. And
Right.
like she cross stitches and she's always had these older lady, and she's really meticulous about like cleanliness, and she's an entomologist, so she has all these like pinned butterflies, and like we couldn't be more opposite.
That's
But
so funny.
it's wild that she's now like in her mid 30s, and now I'm like, oh wait, I am way older than you. Even though I've always kind of had this like backward perception that she is kind of like more mature than me and like more grounded and like has her life together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, my brother, he trains jiu-jitsu as well, and
Uh-huh.
we've been training about 15 years. So he's at the age now, having trained for 15 years,
Right,
that I was starting, basically.
right.
And so when he complains, I was like, Sean, that's how I felt when I started. Can you imagine now, the difference?
Hey,
Yeah.
Kevin, tell me about jujitsu. Like, I see so many people doing it. What's the lure? What do you love about it?
It's funny because so people know about jiu-jitsu now, whereas 15 or whatever it was, 13 years ago when I started, people didn't, and
Right.
it wasn't really a sport. I mean, it was a sport, it existed, but it
Yeah.
wasn't well known. It's it's the most fun sport you can do because you're fully committed to trying to fight somebody,
Uh-huh.
but it's also the most safe way of fighting somebody because. So I suppose what differentiates it from other martial. Are we going? Is this part of the
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
buddy?
yeah.
Oh shit! Okay, sorry.
You're on, Kevin.
Oh right, okay, perfect. Uh, your other so other martial arts or other combat sports, you're going to get punched and you're going to get kicked, and that's
Mhm.
not good for you. So people tend to, unless they're doing it professionally, take it easy on each other, right? And
Right.
that you don't want to get kicked in the face very hard.
No.
Whereas with jiu-jitsu, because there's no striking, it's all about grappling and trying to control your opponent, be it through physically controlling their body or maybe a submission, which is like some kind of a lock on one of their limbs
Yeah.
or a choke. And so because it's more technique based, what we have that other martial arts don't have is the tap. So you tap and you say, you got me, right? If this was
Yeah.
real life, I'd be dead. But because it's sport, you get to tap, and so it means that you can go full force, and it's a very addictive. It's very technical, so that becomes very addictive because as you learn, the more you learn about it, the more you realize there is to learn about it, and so
Right.
you get this pattern of kind of wanting to go back, and also if somebody is sitting there trying to choke you, you can only but be present. You're only in that moment, and I love it for that.
Yeah.
I think more than anything else, it's when I'm training. It's one of the few times also that I'm not being distracted by my phone or by
Right.
life. You're there. You have to be there, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's scary, especially as I get older, because it's probably only a matter of time that I do get properly injured and can't do it anymore. Hence why I wanted to take backup swimming to
Yeah.
have a backup plan.
Sure, especially your shoulders, I imagine they take a beating.
Yeah, yeah, your shoulders, your knees, you can
Yeah.
go because you can twist on your knees pretty badly.
Huh.
Um, mm, yeah, I've been
So
lucky.
do,
I haven't been seriously injured.
yeah. But I imagine having that, like not getting clocked, is a nice
Yeah, no.
amount of control.
Yeah, and you get the occasional kind of non-deliberate. You
Yeah.
get like a bop or whatever, and then once you get that, you realize I would never want to do any proper striking
I
sport. And
know. I know. Getting punched in the face is something
yeah,
else.
but even just like rugby or American football, I mean the whacks that those guys get and what it must do to their brains. I
Well,
don't.
yeah, we know we're learning what it does to their brains, right? Like,
Right? Yeah.
my God.
Yeah, it's CTE. Yeah, it's no joke.
You mentioned something interesting. You said it forces you to be very present. What is that? What does that feel like, and how does that play into other areas of your life?
I find myself very easily distracted with
Okay.
things, with life, with the noise, with social media, with work, with family, with everything.
Hmm.
And I find it really hard to quieten that noise.
Yeah.
And as much as I have to try deliberately, I don't think I used to have to try deliberately 20 years ago or 30 years ago, before a lot of this tech got involved in our lives.
Right.
And I occasionally feel the need to deliberately quieten that noise, and I will push my phone away, or I'll have a day off screens or whatever. But in a non-deliberate way, when I go training, my phone isn't on the side of the mats. I'm just there. I love the way the classes are structured. Is you're kind of, you might do a little bit of a warm up, but then it's a bit of learning. You're being shown something, and that's probably my favorite part of the class. You're just looking and trying to figure out the technical side of things, and then you do maybe a half an hour of grappling or fighting when you're doing that. And so for that full kind of hour and a half of a class, it's just that. And how it impacts the rest of my life, I don't know, man. It's tough, because I suppose at weddings, I make a concerted effort to be there on the wedding day and to not be distracted by stuff going on outside of the wedding. I don't know how much jiu-jitsu helps me do that much. You know? Maybe from a stress point of view, I think probably I find myself, I think I'm quite good at staying calm when weddings get stressful, and that might be because maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but might be because when you're in jiu-jitsu, you're kind of stressed because someone's trying to break your arm or whatever. But I find I have a good propensity for dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I asked you is because I think generally, like, we can tend to like compartmentalize, like, this is my recreational thing, and this is my like work thing, and this is my family thing, but they all bleed together, right, Kevin? Like, I was talking with Daniel Kim actually, and we talked, and he does jujitsu, and he was talking about how it like enriches what he does, like how being an artist is very much like being an athlete, and the presence that you have to have as an athlete plays into your artistic life. I mean, the intensity is probably different, like, I mean, physicality versus more brain work. But I was wondering if that's something that you've ever contemplated, like how having this discipline and learning these ways to move your body in order to obtain a certain result, if you see how that might play into how you create your work.
It's funny, I was telling Annie this before, this is going back a few years. I think there's a talk in how jiu-jitsu has impacted my wedding photography. I don't know what that talk looks like, but it feels like, I agree. I think I also think one of the things with any kind of sports really, and what we do, is that idea that you can't really hack it. You have to spend time on the mats. You've got to put your hours in. You've got to take your 10,000 photos or whatever. Not 10,000 photos, that's 3 weddings, but 10,000 hours, I suppose. You got to go through the stages of learning the process and the technique before you can move on to being a little bit more creative or a little bit more adventurous in what you're doing. Yeah, it's one of the things when you were over here, I know you did that long walk. Or it was a walk or a run? You ran, right?
It was run. I ran it, yeah.
It's not just the running and across the mountains that you did, but it's one of the things I'm jealous of people who do, is just spending time on their own like that. My instinct, if I was to do one of those things, would be, I'll get some friends to come with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not jealous as a negative connotation. I'm not actually jealous. I'm envious, or I'm impressed by people who do that, or people who travel on their own. They go to different countries. I've never been drawn to that. But I think if I tried it, I would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that I love about running, like just as a practice, is that it's simple, it's methodical, and it's like very meditative. You can get into an absolutely meditative state, and my brain is constantly nattering. Everything from like grocery lists to like how I'm going to solve carbon capture, like all of it, the whole gamut. But when I'm running, that all stops. Like within like half an hour, it stops. And inevitably, if I'm chewing on a problem, like whether it's something that I'm working through with a client or like an artistic problem or like a financial issue, just doing that method. And I think part of it would be the breathing, because you really have to like manage your breathing, and being outdoors, like being around and part of reminding myself that I am part of nature and this is healing place, whether you're in a park or whether you're in a mountaintop. They all play together. But if I'm with other people, that doesn't happen.
Right.
So it has to be alone.
I only in the past few. So when I was my teens and kind of growing up, my sport was swimming, and I kind of went away from it when I after university, and then when I took up jiu-jitsu, this is way more fun than swimming, and I kind of never went back to it. It's only in the past few weeks I've been going back to the pool. I've been trying to go twice a week, and it's funny because I find it really boring. And
Swimming, yeah.
that's why I didn't want to go back. And so when I got back in the pool a few weeks ago when I was doing lengths, the first thing that came into my head as I was doing the first few lengths is they must have waterproof headphones now that you can put in, and I can listen
Yeah.
to a podcast. And then I thought, what am I talking about? This is the perfect opportunity to
Yeah.
not have that, and to, and to
Yeah.
be quiet, and to try and slow down the brain and just count, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's really
funny.
important. I think like our world absolutely doesn't support that anymore. I started running like when I was like 15, and I did it deliberately to deal with my mental health. Like I literally ran away from my abuser, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like this is like I remember having the feeling of like, one, I got away. Two, look what I did. Like I did this by myself, just with my feet. Like I didn't need anybody else. I didn't like it was totally by my own power, and that was very like that. Honestly, it broke my world. That was a big shift in my life, realizing that I could do that. I could choose to do that, and I had the ability to be able to do it anywhere. And so that just played into everything else that I was able to get from running. And I think that's why like being bored like that, like running can be very boring, especially if you're just on a road. Like, oh, road running is the worst. But like the method of just moving your body, like I think in our society we're often very detached from our bodies. Like everything is kind of external, and we're constantly like looking elsewhere, like whether it's for validation or for comfort or for entertainment or for we don't we're not looking for that in ourselves. And but by being bored, like by doing something like just like moving your arms, like you're in this rhythm, our brains are just so much happier, like they can get just down to the basics. It just distills it down. And I think the other piece is breathing. So you have this method, and then you have this like forced to breathe at a very specific pace, and that settles, like you just reconnect with what your body was designed to do in a world where everything is designed to dissociate us from our bodies.
That's brilliant. And I think the same with swimming, when you say the breathing, it's the monotony of the up and,
Yeah.
yeah. And I suppose with jiu-jitsu as well, one of the things you're trying to do is to be calm, um, and not freak out with your breathing. Uh, yeah,
I
amazing. So
guess,
when
yeah, if
you're,
someone's got you in a hold, that's definitely like probably tickling on your like your lizard brain, right? Like your like panic. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, let me turn that off. I thought I did turn off. Quit. Yeah, yeah, and it's trying to override that, and probably a little bit like swimming too. You're trying to your the reflex of being underwater. I think did I see somewhere recently that when you get into the cold shower,
Yeah.
it's the CO2 deprivation. It's even as our most basic primeval thing. It's
Yeah.
the gasp that you do, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of mental control to override that, I think. So when you're running, are you just running, or are you measuring and tracking and trying to improve?
I used to do that. I used to do a lot of racing. But in like 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, this isn't why I'm doing this. Like my need for running or my purpose for it really shifted. And I realized that the greatest benefit I was getting was being present. It was just being fully present in my body and within whatever environment I was in. And tracking, I found, took me out of that. Like I
Yeah.
was worried about my pace. I was worried about how far I had gone. I was worried about how fast I went last year when I did this route. Like, so I stopped tracking, and now I use my Strava. It's private, and I just use it as like, it's almost like a journal.
Mm. Yeah.
So now, like, I just talk about how I'm feeling, and like how, like, the run is usually a reflection of what I need to sort of metabolize in whatever's happening in my day, whether it's a beautiful day or whether it's a shit day. Yeah, yeah. So now it's just much more about like being grateful. It's a like a practice of gratitude rather than how fast am I? Although I probably should do more hill repeats.
All right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
only found out that my Apple Watch is waterproof, and I
Oh,
brought it into the pool, and then it measures my length, it measures what stroke I'm doing,
yeah.
and to me that was like, God, this is amazing. But then exactly what you're saying, I was thinking
Yeah.
it would also be nice just to get in and swim until I'm too tired and I want to get out.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I think like what you're saying, I probably need it now just to get back into a bit of my swimming fitness flow or whatever. But I'm looking forward to not bringing my watch in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's if I was training for a race, I would maybe pay a bit more attention to that. But that's also why I stopped racing, is because it was racing. It was like I'm not here to win anything. Like, this running for me is not about winning. It's about doing and being. So,
nice.
yeah, but so on that note, have you thought of any, well, I asked you when we signed up for to do this little chat, if there were any kind of like moments, seasons, periods in your life where things really shifted for you and you couldn't go about doing things in the same way.
So it's an awful question to ask somebody,
I
Bobby.
know.
And I did. I gave it so much thought. And I think the problem with it for me was trying to find a moment, like this
Mm.
particular moment that tilted or shifted.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there was, I mean, I came up with like with ideas, but I don't know how genuinely authentic they would be for me to
Yeah,
like. I think there was a gradual thing for me.
for sure.
I think when I came into wedding photography, um, it wasn't with a view to doing wedding photography, right? I was kind of second shooting and helping Annie out a little bit, and so I came into it from a place of just wanting to do photography at weddings and getting access to people on wedding days and being able to shoot that. And I think probably for the first few years, I was very much focused on the technical and the kind of making sure that I'm fully able to shoot weddings in a way that produces photos that can be used.
Yeah.
And then because I suppose I already knew how to use a camera before I started photographing weddings,
Hmm.
and so that came quite quickly. And then I think I got a little bit kind of okay. When the next level up from that is taking fancy stuff, fancy shots or kind
Yeah.
of the trick shots or how do I use off-camera flash or how do I use a prism, Sam
Yeah, yeah,
Hurd,
yeah.
all
Or a
those type of
copper ring or
Ring
whatever.
of Fire. Yeah, I still have one in my bag. I'm afraid to throw it out just in case someday I get
Just in
inspired.
case.
You never know, right? But I think for me, a couple of years in, I feel like once I figured out how to do the Ring of Fire shot, then I kind of, okay, well, now what do I do? And I kind of plateaued a little bit in that respect. And I think what happened then, if we're looking for the shift, was a move away from all those things and kind of realizing that actually they're for me, they're the photos that I'm trying to, and actually they're probably going to get dated if you look back and these
Yeah.
things, and probably the photos that matter most
Yeah.
to the clients are just simple photos of people having moments and connecting with each other, and it's not. I'm obviously I'm being paid to be at a wedding and I'm there to serve the clients, But I think I felt very much like those photos were for me, and so for me to stay interested, I need to be able to take those photos. Whereas the reality is, I don't. I think being present at a wedding day and being curious about the people that are around me and listening to the conversations and watching the relationships and probably turning it a little bit inwards and thinking about my life from the perspective of their life.
Yeah.
That was probably the big shift for me. And it's funny because it feels like I'm doing less in a way, because I'm not trying to figure out the off-camera flash or the whatever it might be, the Vaseline on the lens or whatever. But because I think probably at the beginning that's what I was putting on my Instagram, and I felt like that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
And to not do that felt like I was leaving something behind, but wrongly so, and actually just being more present. I think probably if there was one shift that I could pin down, it was probably that side of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense, Kevin. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm gonna bring it back to since we were talking about sports, I'm gonna bring it back to a sports analogy. When we I feel like the gimmicks, or like the like the prisms and the ring of fire and all of these little trends and tricks that come up, they distract us, and they make us feel like we're doing something, and part of that is maybe comes from a place where we don't believe, is it really this easy? Just taking photos of people who are having a really wonderful day and in enjoying each other's company, and I get to be here and just photograph this wonderfulness, or this whatever it is that they're the simplest pictures are the ones that are the most timeless and the most beautiful, right? But I remember having an experience. I was doing Olympic lifting. And so that's
No way.
yeah, it was the snatch and the clean and jerk that you see on the Olympics. I was nowhere near the Olympic level, that is for sure. But I remember thinking, I'm an overthinker, and comparing this to other pieces of my life, when the lifts were the easiest. There was sometimes a lift would just suddenly you have this 200 pounds over your head. It was on the floor and now it's above my head. And if I stop thinking, this will happen. But if I overthink about it, if I think about the shrug, and if I think about then it kind of breaks down into little pieces, and they don't flow together. Whereas if you just let it be and relax into it and trust that you are meant to do it in the way that you're there to do it, in the way that your body allows you to do it, or your brain, then it just happens, and you're wow, that was kind of easy. And there must be some sort of trick. Also in our society, we sort of expect things to be hard, right? But it doesn't have to be hard. And I think using those gimmicks is hard. Why are we doing this?
That's it, right? And we're being. I think in my head as well. It came from a place of insecurity, because we're really well paid for what we do.
Yes.
I don't know. I saw some talk. Somebody said we're paid like rocket scientists for not being rocket scientists, and it's kind of true. And so I felt well, I need to prove my worth, and I need to, show that I'm really good at this. And I think at some point I didn't need to prove that anymore, and instead of taking kind of the clever shots, people like the simple ones. And I think we see that from our album selection. People, I feel like sometimes they'll include the trick shots because they feel that's a special photo he took for us, we should probably put it in our album. But
Obligation.
I think, it's the simple ones that people go for, I think. I think it's also, there's an element of control, right? In that if I go to a wedding with 15 trick shots up my sleeve, I can control that. At some point I'll get the couple for whatever amount of time I need to get them to get those shots, and relinquishing that control. And some couples, I had a friend of mine donate her dad's old film camera equipment. And she didn't know anything about it. She said, I don't know what it is. I'll just give it to you if you want it. But it turns out her dad was in the Navy and had just been going around collecting camera stuff. And he had picked up this, it's called a Zenith Sniper, right? And it was used by the Russians or the North Koreans for recce's. And it's a 300mm lens, fully with a full shoulder thing, it looks exactly like a gun because soldiers didn't know how to use cameras, but they knew how to use guns, and so they would recce, and you'd pull the trigger to
Wow.
it's so cool. I have it somewhere here, but I put it on my Instagram story, and I was doing a wedding for. He's not actually a photographer, but he's a very, very, very professional photographer. But he's a very, very good amateur photographer, and he sent me a message and said, "Please bring that to my wedding." And shoot with it. And I was like, oh my God, definitely I will, you know. Actually, I didn't know it was 300mm. I thought it was 200. I think I was somewhere along the way. So it was a disaster. But in terms of the photos I took. But so the odd time, I think there probably is a wedding where those shots, you know, become relevant. But that's on an individual basis. Going to a wedding with, I suppose, like I was saying, the control of relinquishing that and just being like, no, I'm just going to shoot this wedding the way I feel like this wedding should be shot. It's terrifying because then what, you know, particularly I think this is the thing with documentary wedding photography, right, is that it's scary because you have to produce a gallery without knowing what you're going to be up against, whereas maybe someone who knows they're going to have the bulk or what their portfolio represents is beautiful fashion or editorial, and they know that they'll have the couple for the hour and a half or whatever it is to get that. They must feel quite good about themselves going to every wedding, whereas I guess we don't necessarily know we're going to have that time. And I don't know if one of the most terrifying things. Sorry, Bobby, I've gone completely off track. You were asking.
You're good. You're good. I'm following.
One of the most. I don't know if you get very many weddings where it's full documentary and they don't want family photos. I find that terrifying. And I did one a year or two ago with a family with 2 kids. They were lovely. They were architects, and they just didn't want any family photos. And it was during the drinks reception, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to tap them on the shoulder. The kids are gorgeous. I'm just going to, it doesn't have to be, I'll just come out of the drinks room, not just round the corner. I'll get a quick one of the 4 of you, just so we have it in the bag. And I went up to the bride and I said it to her, and she said, no, honestly, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the day at all. Very politely and rightly so for saying it to me. And then it's terrifying. I was like, okay, but I still have to get a nice photo of the 4 of you together. I mean, I would want that, and I think you will want it. So it's not easier. I find it's counterintuitively more difficult, I think, to not have those trick shots or those.
See, Kevin, I love it. I love it when I don't know what's going to happen. I would say, like, before, when I wasn't confident in the work I could produce, and I'm not saying that you're not confident, but I think what I've learned, like, I used to be like, oh God, I need to at least get one photo of the family together, like, for my peace of mind. But I've really learned for 2 things, to really understand what the client means when they say we don't want any of that. Because sometimes, for instance, in that case, she may not have wanted posed family portraits in the way that she had seen done at, like, Walmart or Sears or whatever. But she may have appreciated a candid, you know, kids crawling up onto her lap, like, while you were setting them up. Or, truly, she didn't want any of that whatsoever. So that conversation is super, I think that is super important. But now that, like, my clients really understand that I don't do any of that, I like it from a challenge perspective, because like, you really have to be, like, firing on all cylinders for all the stars to align to come in, like, when those 4 kids, when the 2 kids, let's say, are both talking to their parents at the same time. Like, that would be the closest thing to, like, a traditional family portrait that you can get in without posing it yourself. It certainly does come from a place of control. It comes from a place of, like, insurance, but the joy, or, like, the, like, satisfaction that happens when what you would normally try to create happens naturally. Like, that is the biggest high. Like, I
Totally agree.
love it. Just waiting for that to happen. So good. So satisfying.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It is, and at some point, I mean, as well, the other side of it is they're not going to complain afterwards that there were no family photos
Exactly.
when so it's so even, but then at the same time, when you do get that, you nail it, and you think, no, this is how it should be,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah.
walk out like just kind of brushing your shoulders off a little bit. You're like, yeah.
No, never. No, I don't until, do you know what? And even then, it's until I get the cull. I think, I don't know what your process is like, but until when I cull a wedding, I
Yeah.
inevitably feel like I'm the worst photographer in the world.
Yes.
I need to quit. And
Why
then
did they hire me? But
I'm ready to send the refund. And then I edit it, and I was like, God, it's not too bad. And then I put together the
yeah.
slideshow, and I think, actually, no, it's salvageable. And then yeah, yeah.
Do you ever get that, Kevin, when you're like when you're culling? I used to for a little bit. I did AI culling, and then I was like, no, no, no. Culling is probably the most important process in terms of learning, to trust yourself and to like be confident in your work process. Um, but when you're when you get to like the first series and you're in a position, you're like, oh, I'm in the wrong position. Oh God. Oh God. And then you see your brain like
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. And then finally I get into the spot where I think I need to be and I'm like, yes. Yes, I'm
Thank
like,
God. Thank God past me did it. Yeah, no, absolutely.
thank you, past Bobby. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you saw it. Yeah. Do you call forwards or backwards?
Either or. I often do it depends on the wedding. If it was a really fun party, I'll start with the party.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
But the thing I love about going backwards is that by the time you get to the getting ready, it really distills that you have enough. Like you have captured the day well, and then the getting ready I find much easier to call because you have the assurance that like all of the bangers have happened because that doesn't always happen with getting ready. Like I often find it like getting ready is for me is much more about me getting ready than it is about them getting ready, like just getting into the groove. And so if I go backwards, by the time I get there, I'm like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. Like I don't need. There's so many things I don't need.
I overshoot the morning prep
Yeah,
so much, and
yeah,
I think it's what you're saying. It's getting ready, and it's probably it's getting them used to me as well. Sometimes I
absolutely.
take photos I know we're never going to see the light of day, just because I want them to see this is the distance I shoot you at,
Yeah,
and get them used to me. But yeah, those photos aren't going anywhere. And you're right. If I cull forwards, I have to recall the morning every
yeah,
time.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think that anybody who is wondering how much coverage to do in the morning, if you're that the and explain this to my clients like that as well, that getting ready is much more about you guys getting used to me and all of your people because usually the most important people are in some way associated with the first few hours in the morning. Like parents are stopping by, if not helping them get ready. Closest friends are popping in or they're part of it. Like if those people understand how intimate I am with the couple, then it's like a pebble in a lake, like the concentric circles. Like they all understand that, yep, she's cool, she's this close, she's doing her job, and it reverberates out to even like the furthest people.
I completely agree. I only had this conversation during the week in a WhatsApp group with a few photographers, because I don't know if you're getting this much, but I feel like there's a trend. I don't know. We've a very small sample of weddings if you're shooting 30 to recognize trends, but it seems like more and more. I wonder if it's a post-COVID thing as well. Maybe I don't know, but more and more I'm getting. I don't really want morning photos. Can you just shoot from the ceremony? And then exactly that. I say to them, your nearest and your dearest are there. It's not about pictures of you getting makeup put on your face. It's about moments that will happen with that you don't expect to happen. And I never actually say what you just said there, even though it's in my head. It's a chance for me to kind of get in there because I guess I feel like, would they not be thinking, that's your job. Just turn up at the ceremony and take photos. You don't need to get to know me. Whereas I'm not saying they're right to say that, but I don't actually say it. But I'm trying to sneak it in. We were talking about this. He shot a wedding last week, and he didn't have prep, and he really struggled with it, and was kind of saying, I don't necessarily want to go through that. And I think I'm only going to take weddings where there is prep, and I completely get it. And I have a little 4-hour package that kind of is a hangover from COVID, when weddings were only 10 people and they just wanted the family, ceremony, family photos and a little couple shoot.
Yeah.
And I kind of kept it, and so I've gotten a little bit more used to that cold start.
Yeah.
And the not necessarily getting a chance to build up that relationship with the couple. And what I was saying to him was, there's a bit of me that enjoys it, because you can have zero reliance on the I sometimes feel like when you say goodbye to the couple on the dance floor, and they've had a few drinks, and they're, Kevin, you're the best. I feel like 80% of my job is done. I could almost send a gallery of random photos, and I'd probably, inverted commas, get away with it, right? In that, like, there's a relationship there that you build. Now, that's never the case, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Whereas with the 4-hour job, you're the photographer. You're not. There's no real relationship there, and I feel like in a way, it's liberating, because you have to then just be the photojournalist. I'm not going to be directing. I'm not going to be getting involved. I'm not going to be, your pal on the day. I'm going to be gone in 4 hours, and there's a bit of me that likes that. I wouldn't want to do it at every wedding.
Yeah.
But when I do them, it's a very different ball game.
It's a totally different ballgame. I agree. And I think, I love that you're bringing this up, because I really rely on, and maybe it's making me think maybe I don't need to, but I really rely on developing that relationship with the people. And it's a huge part of my process and part of my brand, and like just who I am as a person. Like, right from my inquiry form, it's all the same process. If you're not willing to share with me, I'm probably not your photographer. Well, I know I'm not, but the diving in and shooting it more objectively is, I wonder what that would be like for me now. That's just making me think. But you're right. You would have to much more rely on your photojournalism chops than on your your shining personality, Kevin.
I mean, presumably both would be good, but it's a different dynamic I find in those days. And by the end of the 4 hours, I do still have a relationship with them, but it's just one that I suppose the other thing with the mornings is, I was talking about this. I feel like on a wedding day, one of my superpowers is being calm and not getting sucked into the stresses of the day, and I think if I'm stressed, yeah. But I feel if I'm stressed, my photos will look stressed. Whereas if I'm calm, I'm able to stay, on the periphery of it. And the morning is when I struggle with that the most. When we're supposed to be leaving the bride's house and we're going here, and the venue is going to be, and that's, I find the pressure. And so a lot of the time, that's where the pressure valve is at its most, my watch will be firing off a bit, my heart rate going too high. It's then, even on the out, I'm trying to be calm on the outwards, my watch is telling me no.
Yeah.
You're not calm, Gavin, but by a long shot. But the 4-hour thing then, or the shorter days, I think means there's almost no stress. I'm starting at 1:30, and I'll be finished at 4:30 or 5:30 or whatever it is, and there's an element of that as well.
That actually feels really nice. So you talk about it, I'm like, maybe I need to reset my entire business, Kevin.
No, I'd still rather do a full day. I mean, the full wedding day than 2 4-hour days. But I think they're often weddings that wouldn't have a wedding photographer, and that means something to me as well. In that we weren't going to get a wedding photographer, but if we found somebody who's only going to do this bit. And then I think in their minds as well, they want photos of the ceremony and a few family pics, and maybe a few nice ones of the two of them, wherever they are. And then I deliver way more than that. I probably shoot, as many as I would, because I've only got the 4 hours, so I need to get it done. But
Yeah.
then it's slowly delighting them in terms of the photos that they do get in those 4 hours, you know.
Over deliver, or what's that phrase? Under
Oh,
promise, over deliver.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You had mentioned something a little bit ago that I want to pick out a little bit. You had said we get paid like rocket scientists, but we're not rocket scientists. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah. You're
Tell me
gonna
more.
ask me what a
Tell me more.
rocket scientist gets paid. I have no idea what a rocket scientist. Look, I mean, you probably, or I think any wedding photographer at some point gets asked to do something else, a side gig or this or that, and I've a few times it's come up, and a friend of mine works for a newspaper, and he was going off to do this really interesting job on the other side of the country, and he said, "Do you want to come over and do it with me?" And he said, "Look, it'll be paid, of course." And I was brilliant, yeah, and it was paid nothing, and that was
Yeah,
the
it's like
going
200
rate.
bucks or something.
Yeah, and there's photographers out there making a living doing that, and
Yeah.
or I mean, really insert anything. Maybe studio photography is a little bit different, but I don't know if it is or not. And in terms of actual photography, I don't know where we could earn the kind of money that we earn, and I think we're sometimes spoilt and. It's not spoiled. We work really, really hard, and I'm not saying that facetiously in terms of the edits and the cull and the volume that we shoot. So on a per hour basis, and after we have all our costs, I know that it's not as well paid as we sometimes feel when we see, you know. But it's in the perspective of what you could be doing, what I could be doing, and I think it's probably because I genuinely love taking photos at weddings, and so to love it and to get paid what we get paid, I'm very grateful for that. So I think,
Yeah.
and then I'm probably downplaying it. I mean, I've been doing this whatever 12 years, and so to say that it's not easy, right? What we do, and it did take me 12 years to get 12 years of good
Yeah,
wedding.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so articulate to get to that point. Probably I could have trained to be a rocket science in those 12 years, but I don't know. You know,
But
yeah.
I think the reason I wanted to bring it up, Kevin, is it kind of plays back into the story that I told about Olympic lifting, is that just because it's hard doesn't mean that because it's easy, it doesn't mean that we should be paid less. Like because it can be easy doesn't mean that it is less valuable, I suppose. Like I
Yeah.
think I I mean there's stances across the entire spectrum as to how much wedding photographers should be paid, or any type of photographer, right? Like, and arguably, like, is it even like is it even worth it? We all have phones. Like there's ideas and opinions across everything. But in terms of the idea that how you charge for your work is somehow dictated by the amount of like like effort or like intelligence or any of those sort of strange parameters. Like we work in a creative field. I don't think any of those parameters apply. Like if you believe that your work is worth X, then yeah, that's how much you should charge. Like if you think that you're worth $500 or $50,000, if you can help people to understand that that is what you charge and they believe you, that's the beautiful thing about being in a creative field, is that you can dictate that. Like you can decide. I don't think society gets to decide. Like some of the hardest jobs, like cleaning hotel rooms, like work, like hard physical, like those jobs should perceivably be paid 10 times as much as anybody else, like it's so arbitrary that,
Teachers.
society looks at, and teachers, yeah, parents,
You
like
know.
the
Yeah.
hardest jobs. Yeah, I don't think it's, I love as a photographer, as a creative, I really value the freedom in being able to say, this is what I believe my work is worth. And then finding the people who are willing to pay that rather than trying to fit into those constructs of like effort and education and all of those things. Because those are all decided by institutions that like those were decided however many decades, like how relevant are any of those ideas, you know?
They're so outdated, and it's funny
Yeah.
how quickly they became outdated, right? No, and I completely agree. And I suppose the only downside to that, right, is that as creatives, I think we're kind of almost wired with self doubt and
Yes,
imposter
exactly.
syndrome and issues around that. And so I feel like a lot of time, I don't know how many photographers, wedding photographers, started out middle or expensive tier. You know,
Yeah,
I
none.
feel like everyone, yeah, right. We all start out doing a few freebies, and then and then we put our prices up over time as we build
My
our
first wedding
confidence.
was $250.
Amazing. Yeah, it's the only, but yeah, I agree with you, and because the value in what we do, it's a funny one, isn't it? It's one of the few things, photography, where it appreciates over time, right? The photos that we take get more valuable as time passes, but it's after the case. It's after the fact, and
Yeah.
it's hard to turn to say to couples, because it's a sales. It sounds like a sales pitch when you say no, 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 but you don't understand. You're after you spent all this money and after your wedding, you'll be so glad that you did.
Yeah.
But it's true. And I've never had a client come back to me and say to me, I know, I feel like we could have saved a few euros on the photography,
Hmm.
because what we do is really valuable, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way that only gets seen retrospectively, I think.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's a really important. I love that we're talking about this because it's a lots of my students will be like, well, I don't want to sound salesy. But I try to have them like reframe it in terms of this isn't sales, this is service. Like you are providing this incredibly unique and personal service to people that will serve not only them, but their entire family, many of their friends, and if they choose to have generations going down the road, this is how this is how they're going to have an opportunity to remember you when they were your age, you know, like there's the value just keeps building on top of itself. But saying that if you have trouble with sales or feeling salesy, then trying to reframe it for yourself so that you recognize that you are providing a service. You are giving something to people rather than like trying to make them buy it. Like
Yeah,
it's
no, that's
just that
very clever. Yeah, yeah,
you're
you're right.
giving
Yeah,
something. Yeah. Yeah, that really
yeah.
helped.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the morning prep, we're talking about that, poking around people's houses. I love
Yeah.
when they're in houses rather than hotels, and seeing the old photos on the walls and the albums. I presume sometimes parents leave the wedding albums out because it's a wedding day or whatever, and flicking through them. And doesn't I mean the couple aren't sitting there kind of going, I wonder how much they paid for their wedding album, 40 years ago. Yeah,
I agree. That's the first thing I do when I go into the house. But also whenever I go into anybody's house, I'm looking at all
yeah.
their photos. I'm looking at the fridge. I'm looking at the walls. I'm like pulling out photo albums that are on the shelf. Like I think they know that I'm doing this because I'm interested in that sort. So it's not super weird. But even if I'm in a complete stranger's house, I am looking at who they used to be.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I
And the
love it.
older, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, or some venues. There's a few venues around Ireland that'll have their old pictures of how the place used to be and the people who used to own it. I love all that. And do you know what always blows me away is how recent photography is. We kind of think, oh, photography's been around forever. It's only really been a few generations, and you realise where I'm at now with my Sony A9 Mark whatever. And like 100 years ago, they barely had cameras.
Yeah.
It blows me away. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's quite fascinating to look at images from like the 1880s. It must have felt so magical that you could like I was just standing there, and now I'm like seeing this on a piece of paper. Like,
Yeah. And you know what? I'm sure there were people who actually, I'm pretty confident there were. Um, I, the whole AI thing, we were talking about this, and
oh,
people pushing against it, and I get both sides of the argument. But one of my issues with the argument is people feel like that anytime there's a new technology, and
yeah,
I and I think with photos,
hmm,
the painters are freaking out about it. You can't, like, this isn't real art.
yeah, totally, yeah,
This is wizardry. The paintings, all the painters are going to stop painting, and
yeah, yeah,
uh, and I think even actually was it Aristotle or Archimedes or one of those guys said the same thing about writing.
yeah.
About no, if people start writing things or learning how to write, our memories will stop working, and it's
Hmm.
like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, total tangent.
Well, they're not wrong. It's been a much longer arc than they probably envisioned, right? But
True. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like our memories are very different than what they used to be. Like as a kid, I knew everybody's phone number, and now I know no one's phone number. Like I don't even know my mom's phone number because it's in my phone. Like
Yeah.
I don't need to remember that. So
Yeah. Same.
yeah,
I had to teach them.
Aristotle's onto something, I think.
He could have been. He could have been. He was a clever guy. It turns out. Smart man. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, Kevin. It was very fun. It was
You
very
made it very, very easy, Bob. You didn't feel like I was doing a podcast. I felt like I was just chatting to you.
well. Enjoy your family time, and I will be in touch.
Take it easy.
Okay, take care. Bye. Well, thank you for joining me today, Kevin. I loved how our conversation meandered over some very pertinent topics, and the discussion about our worth, the discussion about making our life easy, how we shoot easy. The simplest is often the best, my friends, and it's certainly the most timeless. So if that's something that you struggle with in terms of like, should I follow this trend or should I mean, always try things. That playing is such an important part of our creativity. And also consider that if you are feeling like you should be doing something, then that is likely not coming from a place of your own motivation. That is likely coming from a place of like expectation or perceptions of social requirements. And my encouragement to you, if you're feeling like you should be doing something, you probably don't. You probably shouldn't, which isn't the best way to respond to a should, is with a shouldn't. But inquire in your own motivations as to if you're trying to incorporate something that feels like it's a trend. I don't know. I don't know. Playing is fun. Yes, playing is fun. But feeling obliged to include something because it happens to be going viral on Instagram is likely not coming from a genuine place. And our work as wedding photographers, as family photographers, our clients generally really want our work to come from a genuine place. So this is my encouragement to you to keep it genuine, my friends. Thank you to Kevin for being here, and thank you to all of you for listening. I really enjoy my time with you, and I hope you have a